All right, welcome everyone to this afternoon's session for our 2025 World Teachers' Day conference. And welcome back to all of those of you who have already joined us for these sessions in the morning and also yesterday. My name is Mariela Masuyama and I work for the British Council in Buenos Aires in Argentina. So it's fantastic to have all of you here with us today. If you're joining us on Zoom, welcome, of course, and please come in and tell us in the chats where you're coming from, where you're joining us from. If you're joining on Facebook and YouTube, also please say hello in the chat. We'd love to hear where everyone is joining from. And so today I have with me Ana Lucía Castells Ruíz. She's going to tell us all about design thinking in projects. So hi, Ana Lucía, how are you doing?
Hello, Mariela. I'm fine and really happy to be here with you all again.
Fantastic to have you. We're so excited. So we are just about to start, but first, let me tell everybody a little bit about you. So Ana Lucía Castells Ruíz is an English teacher from Buenos Aires, Argentina, and with 13 years of experience, Ana Lucía teaches in primary and secondary school, where she incorporates literature, films, and interactive projects into her lessons. And Ana is well known for fostering a love for learning, reading, and writing in her learners. She was actually mentored by Teaching English in 2024, and she was part of our panel discussion, How Can You Break Down Barriers in Your Classroom, as part of our Breaking Down Barriers webinar event. So I'm sure you've seen her before. Okay, so Ana, where are you today?
Well, Maria, I'm at home. It's a holiday here in Argentina. So, well, ready to be here with you to talk about my experience. I'm here in my dining room. And, well, do I look professional with this background?
Yeah, same here.
This is
So,
new. It's nice.
great. It's a quiet day in Buenos Aires. I suppose then we are ready to start. So I leave everybody in your hands, and I'll pop out, and then I'll come back at the end of the session for some questions and answers with you, if that's okay.
Of course, Mariela, yes.
All right. So the floor is yours, Ana Lucía. Enjoy.
Great. I'm going to start sharing. Well, I think I'm ready to go. Welcome, educators around the world, and thank you for being here with me today. I'd like to share my experience with design thinking, that it's an approach I discovered 2 years ago, and I hope you can walk away with ideas to apply in your own teaching practices. As you can see, my presentation consists of 4 steps. First, we're going to make an introduction to design thinking. Then I would love to talk about my experience with a design thinking project at school. Third, we are going to see a guide for you to plan a design thinking project. I'm going to give you all the steps that you need to write to start creating and to start applying this in your classroom. And last but not least, as Mariela well said, we're going to have a question and answer time. Before we dive in, I would like to ask you some questions. I want you to make you think a little bit. I would love to know if you know what design thinking is. Have you ever heard of this term? No? Okay. Oh, some colleagues from Argentina. Yes. John, okay. I'm an yes, but not in education. Great. Not exactly. Hannah, haven't heard of it before. Okay, many people say no, so well, you're in the right place. I have never experienced this. Marik, not sure. Okay, you didn't understand. It's a way of thinking in a particular direction. You're right. Nigerian, what do you say? It's complex. Practical procedures, that's right. I will repeat the question. Do you know what design thinking is? Somebody asked to repeat the questions. Excited to learn more. Great. Great, thank you. Testing and adapting, of course. Yes. No spoilers, please. Yes, you're right. Design thinking, creatively solving problems, of course. Yes, directed to the teaching process. Borrow from engineering, that's right. Okay, thank you for your greetings. Okay. It's an iterative problem solving process. Yes, it is. Okay. Let's go to the second question. Have you ever carried out a design thinking project? Have you ever experienced this? Have you ever done this with your learners? No, you have a big idea. Not yet. Okay, I'm going to give you some ideas if you want to start your project. Solving problems. Okay, there was a teacher that did it. Great. Not in the teaching scope, not yet. Oh, so many answers to research papers. Okay, thank you so much. You're so participative. Great. Okay. Some teachers are saying no. So, well, let's see if you can walk away with some ideas to start your own design thinking project. Okay, now let's explore a little bit of theory, right? Design thinking is a problem-solving methodology that is student-centered because the learner is the protagonist and needs to investigate and do lots of things. Yes, it's the center of the project. It's collaborative because learners work together towards the same goal. They work together to find solutions. So this is great. It can be messy in the classroom, but if we guide them, collaborative work is great. And last but not least is iterative. This was a new word to me. This means that the process is repetitive, but in a positive way, because it's repetitive to improve and to polish ideas, to make them better. And this approach empowers students to tackle real world problems creatively and meaningfully. I believe that design thinking goes hand in hand with 21st century skills because, as we all know, and we strongly believe, our learners and global citizens. And well, as we did this at school, we were asked to make a design thinking project. I had never read a text about this. We just got the procedures, but I found a phrase, a quote by Tim Brown. He wrote a text called How Design Thinking Transforms Organizations, Inspires Innovation. And he said that design thinking is not just a strategy, but a journey to inspire innovation and champion transformative change. And what I love here is this image of a journey. Okay, we're not going to be in the same place when we finish our design thinking project, and we learn as we walk together with our learners. That's the word that I liked from this quote. Okay, if you want to implement design thinking, you need to carefully follow some steps. All right, the first step is empathize. What a lovely word. Well, but here students need to understand the problem and identify who they are trying to help with their design. Yes, so here there's a lot of reading, watching videos, thinking. Then we have the second step, that is define. In this part of the process, students need to narrow down. They need to clearly define the problem that they want to solve. Okay, because sometimes you have a situation and well, there are several aspects, so they need to narrow down and focus on one thing or two things. Third step is ideate. This moment, learners need to do lots of brainstorming. They need to think of possible solutions, write ideas. They need to choose the best ideas. And in this moment, students can also draw designs, create diagrams, and think about the materials they may need for the final product. Then, this is really fun. This is the moment to prototype. Yes, students build a prototype of their design, okay? What was in a paper, in their notebooks, well, now has to be a prototype. They have to give shape to all this creativity. And the last step, spoiler, we didn't do this step when I did the project, but it's an important part, it's testing. Yes, learners have to test their prototypes and they gather feedback from peers or from teachers, and they need to reflect. All right. Okay, now let's move on to my personal experience with design thinking, right? As I mentioned before, I encountered this methodology 2 years ago when we started planning our eco fair at school. I will tell you a little bit about my school. I work in Adrogué, Buenos Aires, in Colegio Newlands. Yes, this is a bilingual school. Students study Spanish. They have their subjects till in the morning. Then they have lunch, and then we have English time. Okay, and at school we work through projects. We teach English through projects, and there's lots of literature mainly. We love stories, but also we love ecology, and we have worked a lot on this. And we always frame our projects with sustainable development goals framework. And every year we have kind of an open class, but it's more than an open class. Yes, we call them fairs. In general, they have been related to ecology, as I said. Last year it was more social. This year it was more focused on learning itself. But 2 years ago, our dear head, Bibi, 2-3 months before the fair, she said that this year we had to work with a design thinking project. We had to tackle an environmental problem in our country, Argentina. Teachers in Spanish and teachers in English had to work on this. We had to choose different problems. So there were 12 problems. We solved 12 problems, a lot. We had to choose one. We needed to investigate a lot before starting planning. We had to decide. And at that time, my co-worker Cande, well, she's a fan like me of Patagonia. Patagonia is a beautiful region in Argentina. It's in the south of the country. It's full of forests, beautiful mountains. Well, there's snow in the winter, crystal clear lake. So we love Patagonia. So we said, let's do something about this. And there is a big problem, mainly during summer. There is a big problem with wildfires. Because people started, sometimes there are natural causes, but it's a big deal. It's really worrying. It's a pity, and it's dangerous too. So we wanted to work on this. Pine trees and the risk of wildfires. Okay, so we had to start with the step empathize. So we got lots of articles in Spanish, of course. So we had to choose an article, but we couldn't decide, so we chose two. We translated it and we made it simple and accessible for our third year learners. Our learners are 8, 9 years old, so the text had to be really accessible, as I said, easy for them to understand and to start getting ready for the project. So the first article was called Invitation to the Second Pine Tree Removal. This was an article from Bariloche that people were invited by an organization to go and work together to remove pine trees that pine trees are not native species, but they were planted around 30 years ago in Patagonia because they grow fast because of the wood, but it's like they didn't stop growing and they bring lots of problems as regards wildfires, water for the other species, and the native species cannot grow properly. That's what we learned. The second article was called Pine Trees and the Risk of Wildfires. Well, this one explained uh, why pine trees are so flammable. And well, it talked about some accidents in some specific places in Bariloche. So we started reading this with the kids. Yes. Also, inside the empathize moment, we talked to lots of experts. First of all, we talked to 3 experts in Argentina. They spoke in Spanish, but that was right because what we needed was their expertise, all the knowledge they had. First of all, we talked to a lovely firefighter, Marcelo. He was really kind with the kids, and he's a firefighter specialized in wildfires. Here in Argentina, we call these firefighters brigadistas. Yes, I don't know. I don't know if there's a word in English, but it's a firefighter that works in the nature. Okay, they train a lot. They work in groups. So he explained why the pine trees were so flammable, and he showed pictures to my learners. Many kids know Patagonia because it's like a typical place to go during winter and also during summer to enjoy the lakes, for instance. And well, he invited learners to take care of the environment. He also mentioned 3 different ways of putting out the fire, 3 different techniques, so kids were amazed. Well, then we had a second video call, but this time with 2 lovely professionals, 2 lovely ladies. They are biologists and they live really close to Nahuel Huapi National Park in Bariloche. And well, they teach. They teach kids. I mean, through video calls and also in the park and schools in Bariloche. And they talked about flora mainly. They talked about native species. They explained why it's so important to protect native species and replant native species. And of course, because this is great and kids like it, we also talked about animals in the area. And also because we need to understand if that we have wildfires, their homes are in danger. So this was a really nice moment. And they talked about the sizes of the different animals, so kids had to move. This was really interactive. And we also had a third video call, but this time with a park ranger in the USA. We contacted a park ranger of the first national park in the whole world. Yes, Yellowstone. If you want to do this with your learners, it's great. You can visit the Yellowstone webpage, and you can go to the section of field trips. I've done this for years in different projects, and they are so calm, so open. And this time, I asked them to focus on wildfires. So they talked about their techniques of fighting wildfires in US. This is a problem there too. And they also talked about the invasive species they have in their park and what they do to stop them. So it's like we wrote to the park ranger beforehand so that we narrow down like the talk. So I invite you to do this activity with your learners. If it's a general video call, they will talk about the animals. They will show you like their horns and their skulls, pictures, videos. It's a great experience for kids. So in Empathize, we read and we talked to experts. Then the next step was define. Okay, learners got in groups. We prepared the group so that students that behave well are with more challenging students so that we have a balance. We need to guide them all the time in this process. I mean, they're the protagonists, but we have to be there monitoring all the steps. So kids had to choose between, working on invasive species or wildfires. Of course, the two things are intertwined, but we wanted them to focus on one thing or the other. Then, ideate, a moment to brainstorm, to think of solutions, to write ideas. This moment, we also gave them like vocabulary of the different parts of simple machines. Yes, like poles, mechanic arms, ramps, wheels. Well, we talked about different parts of simple machines with the technology teacher. So we also work with other colleagues. Then kids had to draw their designs, they had to plan. So I recreated with artificial intelligence two of my favorite plans they designed. First of all, it was a seed throwing pistol with Kande, my coworker. We called it the hippie gun. So kids brought some seeds they found and they created a gun, and they said that they would go after a wildfire, for instance, and they will throw seeds of native trees to spread and to make a new forest of native plants. So we laughed a lot with this one, but it was good. Then I also included like a truck to remove invasive trees and replant native trees. So it had like two special parts to do this task. So kids debated a lot in this stage. Well, this part was fun. Kids were asked to bring material from home, cardboard, plastic. We have lots of things in our makerspace. At school, we have these green tables are part of our makerspace. It's a really comfortable space for kids to get together and create and work. So they could bring different types of materials from home, and they created different prototypes. At the beginning, when we started planning, I called them maquettes, but no, they are more than maquettes, they are prototypes, because there was a lot of work behind this, lots of planning. So it's a prototype to solve a problem. Well, and that was it. After we did all this, we prepared a presentation like to show evidence of all the journey we had done. And they came for parents to visit the eco fair. in both areas, Spanish, English. And we just showed them what we had done. So this was like very natural. And in the last instance, we show parents all the prototypes they had thought of, and making clear that kids are the future, that our learners are citizens of the world, and that when we are part of the problem, we have part of the solution, and we need to team up and get together to protect our world, to make our world a better place. Just like my students, I'm sure your learners can tackle other questions that are really meaningful. Yes, and I'm sure that design thinking gives them both a process and a purpose, right? I want you to think a little bit. Would you like to do this with your students? What topic would you like to include in your own design thinking project? I would really like to read if you have any idea. Work on pollution, sustainable community. That's interesting. Global warming, definitely. Threats, of course, climate change, pollution, okay. Moral values, of course. This can be about anything. Taking care of water, that's important. Transport, desertification, traffic jams. That's great. I didn't study design thinking. I mean, I learned about this while I was working. Discrimination, of course, food waste solutions, that's great. Useful inventions, emotional management, yes, we did that this year in the fair. Deforestation, racism. You have great ideas. Mindfulness, sleep deprivation, keeping the environment clean. Well, lots of people mention discrimination. I think it's so important. And I would really start with literature if I worked in the, discrimination, pollution awareness, screen time management. That's fantastic. Today, justice in the Philippines, bullying, of course, nutritious veggies, procrastination. I need that. Time management, alternative, gender equality. I love that issue. White pollution, mental health. Interesting. I would work on that with adolescents, I think. Peace in the world, stress management, that's necessary. Teachers' well-being, yes, we need that too. Spirituality, unity in diversity. Okay, that was my topic this year for the fair. Yes, being friends with people that is different from us. Fighting poverty, phobia management, spreading kindness. Okay. Colorism and internalized racism in Latin America, women's rights. Well, educators, you are amazing. You're amazing. Empathy in student life. This is great. You have lots of ideas, and I really hope that you can put this into practice. Yes, now after I read food education, burnout, after I read more answers, I'm going to give you the patterns to start planning your design thinking project. Cultural diversity, develop critical thinking, problem solving. Yes, this is design thinking. Good manners. Great to work with little kids. Mainly, that's great. Air pollutions. How to take care of others. Great. Negotiation for success. You have great ideas. Inclusive learning. That's so necessary. Volunteering. Self-awareness. Thank you so much for all your ideas. So I'm sure you're ready to start planning. your own design thinking project. I'm going to show you the steps now. Yes, this will be a guide to plan your design thinking project. And when I finish showing you all the steps, you will have a moment to make a screenshot or to take a picture of all the steps together so that you walk away with your guide. So that on Monday you can start writing or thinking about your great project. Well, first step is to think of a title and to write a clear rationale. Yes, you need to define the problem and say why it is important. Step 2 is to think of a very good driving question. Yes, the question needs to engage your students deeply. In my case, was what can we do to stop wildfires in Patagonia? It's very punctual. Step 3, you need to settle the perspectives and to think of different countries for each perspective. If you want to make a very good project, a very complete project, you need to think of the three perspectives. First of all, the individual. What do the learners know about the issue? So what questions can you pose for the individual perspective related to the topic? Then the local perspective, well, questions about our surroundings. Yes, near my home, near school, the country. And last but not least, this is super important, we need to think of the global perspective because, as I said before, design thinking is iterative, so it's repetitive, and we need to check and to see if what we have done is okay or if we can polish it. So in a moment of this process, you also see what other countries have done to solve a similar problem, right? That's why we talked to the park ranger in the US to know the things that they did, the techniques they had to solve the fires, to stop the fires. In step 4, you need to think of all the STEAM connections you can make. And I assure you, there are so many when you start thinking. Well, the STEAM connections have to do with science, technology, engineering, art, and math. Well, in my case, maybe I don't feel comfortable with math and I have never chosen when making a project, but in this case, we worked on science, biology. We also work a little bit on technology with the parts of the machines, and of course engineering because kids needed to assemble and think of the movements of their prototypes and the function of their prototypes. Art is always beautiful. It's always nice to use. I haven't used it this time, but I love to connect art with literature, for instance. Then in step 5, you can think of other connections. Yes, you can add other disciplines, history, language, or any other topic that is not STEAM. Step 6, you need to settle the skills and knowledge. You need to project what are my students going to do by the end of the project? What are the skills they will have gained by the end of the project? So you need to settle these objectives so that you guide everything correctly. And the last step, final product. What are your students going to create? Yes, are they going to solve a problem? They're going to answer a question. They're going to create a product. Yes, in our case, we were asked to plan a project, to design a prototype, yes, to solve a problem in Argentina. So what you need to think what your learners are going to create by the end of their design thinking project. And now, as I promised, sorry, The last step is the procedure. You just need to, as a guideline or as a roadmap, you need to think of the different tasks or activities that you would like to do to achieve the final goal, the final product. Okay. In my case, with Miss Cande, well, we made a list of, for instance, okay, let's find experts. Well, we found the experts. What are we going to ask them? So kids, planning an interview, writing an interview with students, getting material. So all the tasks that you do are part of your roadmap, and they are really important. Okay, and as I said before, I was going to give you all the steps together, because I'm sure that many of you would love to start a great design thinking project, because you wrote wonderful and interesting and fruitful ideas. And I would really like to know if in the future you apply this, you do it. And if you want to talk to me, if you want to tell me that you worked on this, if you have maybe questions later, you can find me here. Yes, you have my email. Yes, castells.ruiz@colegionewlands.com.ar. You can find me there. Write to me. Tell me if you need help or if you have any question or comment. Of course, they are not limited to STEM. Thank you, teachers. Great session. Oh, I'm so happy. Thank you for being there. Repeat the steps, please. Okay, I will. In a minute, I will. Show the screen again. Great. In a minute, I will show you again. Milagritos, thank you for your message. Oh, thank you for your efforts. Your comments are lovely. I'm so glad. Oh, thank you. Amazing session. Thank you. Highly informative. Thank you. You're very inspiring. Thank you. Thank you. This is great. Lots of hearts there. I'm gonna cry. This is lovely. Well, I will go back here. Some teachers asked me to show this again. Here you have the 8 steps together. You can take a picture of it to make a screenshot so that you have the necessary headings to start writing your design thinking project. But meanwhile, I would love to read your comments. Thank you. I'll try it. Great.
All right. Thank you so much, Ana Lucia. You're getting so much love in the comments and lots of heart
Yes.
reactions as well on Zoom. This is fantastic. I think it's really inspiring for teachers to think about what they can do in their lessons that perhaps goes a bit beyond what we normally do, which is just like, we teach the vocabulary, we teach the grammar, but then there's so much more that we can do to connect learners to the world, to the environment, to bigger topics. So it's fantastic how you integrated design thinking with perhaps the sustainable development goals and things that are important in the development of learners as citizens as well. So we have so many questions in the chat here on Zoom, on the YouTube. So I'm going to try and go through some of them with you, if that's okay.
Yes.
I'm going to open with a question from Samira here on Zoom, who says, thank you for such an interesting presentation. And could you share any challenges that you and or your students encounter in the process of implementing such projects? Were there any challenges, any issues, any resistance?
Okay, let me think. It was 2 years ago. I had a great group, in fact. But no, kids were really open. In general, students at my school are open. They're used to working with projects. So you present something in a nice way and they love it. And they got really engaged. Mainly, we know as teachers, when you have group work, it's messy. It's really messy. It's noisy, but we need to be ready for this. We need to know that for some of the instances where kids get in groups and you have materials, sometimes, yes, they have discussions, they may fight. So I think maybe I can't remember something in particular, but maybe it was related to this, like group work, noise, material spread all over the place. But I think that if before you think strategically of the groups, I think that helps a lot. That's what I generally do, like boys and girls, yes, and kids with different personalities so that they don't clash. But we know our kids, so I think maybe that's what the problem I had when I carried out this project. Samira,
Did you set up the groups yourself, or do you allow learners to somewhat choose who they're going to work with?
let's see what they say. In my case, I feel that behavior issues are like getting worse, at least in my country. So it's like I try like to settle things beforehand, like to avoid some headaches later. Okay.
Anna, a question that I got in the chat from one of the moderators actually for the session is
Okay.
how long does this take? Like, how many lessons did you devote to this? Do you have a set number of lessons to work on each of the stages? So what was the
Okay.
length of this type of work?
Let me think. I believe we started a month before the Eco Fair, and learners have English lessons 4 times a week. So it's like we had, yes, so we may have had like 15 days of classes, 15 lessons mainly. But it depends on your own pace, your student's pace, or the things that you want to achieve. It depends on the amount of hours that you have with your learners. I have them whole afternoon, yes, 3 hours every day. So yes, I think they must have been 15, 16 lessons. And of course, it's that maybe we worked on all these before break time, where we speak a lot, we use English a lot. Then after break time, we work on written work. So we continue working on grammar, but we know our learners. So when things get too long, interest starts to lower and they are not so engaged. So I think you need to decide. When you make your roadmap, you can decide how many days you're going to devote for each step. That's a good moment to decide that.
Okay, we have a lot of questions in the chat having to do with the idea of choice. And the one of the participants asks whether you poll students with several options, especially when they're talking about step two, or do you choose based on what you already know about your students? And then more generally, people are asking how much choice do you give, or how do you guide their thinking on choosing a topic?
Great. Okay. The problem was chosen by the teacher. So that's was our idea because it had to be a problem in Argentina. Every teacher had a different one. There was one really interesting about microplastic in fish. So
Interesting.
because Connie said that is a very important institution in my country, investigated about this. So well, like we had interesting topics. Then maybe the problem we chose for third grade, we had like two options, like the invasive species or working more on wildfires. So well, there they didn't have like lots of choices, but I believe that when they worked on ideate and creating their prototype, they had lots of situations or things to choose. They were open to choose whatever they wanted. I mean, they unleashed their creativity at the time. It's like they have options, but we need to monitor and guide. I like to be the chairperson. As we're reading books, when we were becoming teachers, we guide the steps, we give them some amount of choice, but when we are there. But it depends on how you feel about it, or it depends on your students, their age.
Of course. And speaking about age, there are lots of questions having to do with working with this type of project with other age groups. Somebody in the chat says, any ideas on how this technique can be applied to classrooms for older students, like, for example, in IELTS preparation courses? And somebody else was asking, is this something that perhaps we can use at tertiary level? So what's the, tell us about your own age group, but do you think this would be feasible with perhaps older learners, even adults?
Sure, Mariela, of course. Yes, you can apply this methodology to any age group. Of course, the topics may vary. Maybe with other kids, you can deal with more serious issues. Yes, many people were talking about mental health. So I think adolescence is a good moment to talk about that. For instance, I think you can apply it. My learners are 8 years old, 9 years old. Yes, they're really young, but I mean, our learners are creative beings, and they can find solutions to different problems. I mean, that are suitable for their age.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Yes.
not, we as teachers, we're not going to give them more than they can handle. I'm sure. But yes, we can apply this to different ages. I don't know if I was clear.
Yes,
Sorry.
of course. And I agree that the key is that the topic that the group is going to be working on. Of course, there are more mature topics,
Yes.
as you mentioned, well-being, for example, although you can
Delicate
work
topics.
with children and well-being in terms of healthy habits and
Of
that
course.
type of thing. But perhaps from a more serious perspective, or in more in depth, this is something that would work with older teenagers or even adults. Now let's completely change the focus, because Liesel says, did you prepare essential vocabulary to work on this project with 8 and 9-year-olds? So we talked a little bit about the setup of the project, but if we go to the language, did you use any specific techniques to work on the language that the students would need to perhaps understand the articles or understand interviews about this topic?
Okay, listen, I think, of course, before the project, we thought of all the possible words students were going to encounter, all the possible vocabulary. I don't remember maybe like a verb tense or any other grammar topic, but mainly we worked on vocabulary so that students had the necessary scaffolding to understand the text we presented at the beginning. And then when we worked on parts of a machine with the technology teacher, we also saw something specific of that, not related to ecology, but related to machines. Yes, and before, yes, we worked on question formation. So we worked on this grammar topic before the interview with the park ranger in Yellowstone. Students wrote ideas in English because the other professionals were Argentinian. And I remember that question formation is important. Like you need to frame a very good question to get all the info that you can. And they also did this in Spanish. They worked with the genre interview. And well, so I want to tell you, we worked a lot with the teachers in Spanish. We are in contact all the time, and like we try to have the same focus. So we are in the same tune. That's important. You're not an island. You need to work with your colleagues hand in hand.
Absolutely. And the topics that the children work on do become more meaningful when they are approached from different subjects, from different areas of knowledge. Isiana in the chat says that this is a meaningful and thoughtful project.
Right.
But one thing they mention is it's quite a big one, especially if you need to coordinate with external experts. Like you mentioned, you got in touch with a park ranger from Yellowstone. So there's two things. One, of course, there's the logistics of this, and then also there is the time issue. You mentioned you have students for an afternoon, for several days a week, and this is sometimes not the case with other schools. So what they say in the chat is that they definitely want to try this, but do you have any alternative ways, especially to conduct this empathize step in a smaller scale? So perhaps if you don't have time to conduct interviews with experts and this and that, would the learners be able to do the empathize stage with perhaps lower prep type activities or tasks?
Definitely. I mean, you need to plan that carefully, but of course, because the empathize moment is like when you get the information and you investigate. So, I mean, an interview is a great tool because you have a real person there. But of course, there are different ways to investigate, find materials, go to the school's library, and I don't know, read. You use the computers, use Google Earth. I don't know, to visit the place that you're talking about. Watch videos. There are different ways to carry out the empathize step or
Of course.
section.
And speaking of this idea of doing this research, Nusrat in the chat was asking, do I provide them with the necessary documents or clips, or will they collect it by themselves?
Well, in my case, I would like curate or choose the things myself. Yes, my learners are young, and in this case, the proposal was very specific. I mean, for the eco fair, every teacher needs to work on a problem related to ecology in Argentina. So it's not like that it was vague. No, we needed to conduct this really closely, and that's why with my coworker we adapted these two articles that were the starting point for all this journey. And in my case, I would provide them with the tools and the content. That's what I would do.
And again, perhaps with the older students, they can do the research part a bit more autonomously. And if you're working with primary school, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, they might need a bit more of this guidance
Definitely.
from you and a bit more of an active role from you as a
Totally.
teacher.
Yes.
One of the questions that we got in the chat is, do you think people can use this concept for a course book? And Lailani in the chat says that they're going to write a course book soon. And perhaps do you think they could incorporate design thinking projects as part of a course book? What's your
That would
take
be
on
really interesting. That's a great idea. Yes, that would be
this?
lovely.
I
Really
think they're
fruitful for
an
kids.
example of project work type things. It maybe at the end of a unit or at the
Yes. Yes, sometimes we have like a mini projects in English course books, right? Maybe related to animals, or they make a proposal like to create something at the end of a unit. I don't know, the butterfly, I don't know, something like that,
Mhm.
butterfly
Um,
cycle. Or they
and
invite students to do something and present it to others. Yes, some books have these sections. But yes, if it's really guided, I think that would be fantastic to have it in a course book.
Definitely. Okay, let's take one more question because we had so many, but I'm afraid we have
Yes.
to start wrapping up. So first, last question. Um, Somebody asks, how can they adapt this design thinking model either for younger learners or for mixed ability classes? And I don't know whether you've had this type of mixed ability groups and perhaps you have learners who have a higher level, so to speak, of English
Yes.
or more fluency or different skill sets, and perhaps you have students who struggle a bit more. You mentioned the idea of grouping some learners according to their different skills. Is there anything else that you consider in terms of differentiation?
Well, yes, inclusive practices are really important. It's hard. Yes, this year I have a really mixed ability group at school. It's a big challenge for me as a teacher. I'm learning a lot. I need to calm down. Sometimes it's really hard. And yes, when you have to give the child what they need and what they are able to do. And I think a good way is to group them with students that are going to push them forward or are going to help them or that will embrace them to, to go on with the tasks and doing things. And of course, when it comes the time to write something, do something, or I don't know, to evaluate this process, because you can also have assessment on this when you finish,
Of course.
when they will have it according to their possibilities, to their skills. So yes, adapting is a lot of work, but it's necessary
Mhm. Yes, and I think
because
that
kids
that
can
can be
speak
said of any
English in different
lesson.
ways. Mhm.
Very good.
Yes, they need more scaffolding sometimes. For instance, well, when we invite parents to come, we know the kids that are shy, the kids that cannot speak a lot. So I'm not going to give that child like I don't know, a big text to learn to say in front of the parents. Maybe you can give that child some props to feel more comfortable and to express, to show what he or she knows. We know them, so we are going to adapt things for them all the
Yes,
time.
and
I think
sometimes
it's
it's a
about
matter
this.
of perhaps
I
changing the
don't have a
pace a little
recipe, Mariela.
bit.
I don't know. It's this.
Hmm. Well, I'm sure people in the chat can also give us their ideas for how do they
Mhm.
differentiate instruction and
Yes.
their lessons when they are doing this type of more ambitious projects. Okay, and I'm afraid this is pretty much all the time we have. So thanks again, Ana Lucia. This has been wonderful. And I also would like to give a little thank you to our moderators, Mel and Joe, who are here with me on Zoom, Karen and Marcus, who are on Facebook, and our moderators on YouTube as well. And we're going to be back in 15 minutes for our next session, which is all about integrating 21st century skills in the classroom. So stay tuned. You have a little break to go have a cup of coffee and come back. So I hope to see everybody in 15 minutes. So thanks again, Ana Lucia. Thank you so very much.
Bye, Mariela. It was an honor to be here, and thank you for being there.